The story begins on a quiet afternoon when the sun was starting to fall behind the trees, spreading a soft golden light across the long empty road. A man named Daniel was driving slowly, lost in his own thoughts. His life had been heavy for months, filled with stress, loneliness, and a constant feeling that something important was missing. He didn't know why, but that day he chose to take a different route home, a long countryside road he rarely used. The air felt calmer there, and he needed a break from the noise in his mind. As he drove deeper into the quiet stretch, he noticed two little figures far ahead. At first, he thought maybe they were kids playing near their home, but as his car moved closer, his heart tightened in concern. The two figures weren't near a house or a yard. They were standing right in the middle of the road, two little girls. Both looked around 8 years old. And strangely, they looked exactly the same from a distance, same height, same hair, same posture. Twin sisters. Daniel slowed down immediately, confused and a bit worried. He rolled down his window and called out gently, asking if they were okay, but the girls didn't answer. They simply looked at him with wide, serious eyes as if they had been waiting for him specifically. Their silence didn't feel rude. It felt heavy, like they had something important to say but didn't know how to begin. Daniel stepped out of the car carefully and approached them, making sure not to scare them. Up close, he noticed something unusual. Their clothes were neat but dusty, like they had been walking a long time. Their hair was tied up in the same little braids. Their eyes, deep and full of emotion, held a kind of sadness no child should ever carry. Daniel knelt down to match their height and asked again where their parents were and why they were standing alone on the road. One of the girls finally stepped forward. Her voice was soft but steady as she said they had been waiting for someone who could help them. Daniel didn't understand. He looked around for any sign of danger or any adults nearby, but saw nothing but empty road and quiet forest. Before he could ask more, the other twins stepped closer too. They exchanged a look with each other, as if agreeing silently on what to say next. Then, with a seriousness that made Daniel's heart beat faster, the first girl whispered that they needed him. Not anyone else? Him? Daniel felt a strange chill, not of fear, but of something unknown pulling at his emotions. How could two children he had never met say they were waiting specifically for him? He asked them gently, who told them he would come, but their answer only deepened the mystery. They said they didn't know who he was, but they recognized his face because they had seen him before. Daniel froze. Seen him before? Where? When? The twins didn't look confused. They looked certain. One of them explained that they had seen him in a picture their mother kept hidden, a picture she cried over every night. A picture of a man who looked just like him. Daniel's mind spun. These kids were strangers. He had never seen them before. And yet they were speaking as if they knew something about his past. Something about him that even he didn't know. His heart began to race, not from fear, but from a strange sense of familiarity. Something deep inside him, an ache he always ignored, stirred awake. He asked them gently if their mother was nearby. Their faces changed immediately. Pain flashed across their eyes. One of the girls took Daniel's hand and squeezed it like she was holding on to the last bit of hope she had left. She said their mother was in trouble, serious trouble, and that they had run away to find help before it was too late. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. He didn't know whether to question them more or to act immediately. But the urgency in their faces pushed him to listen. He asked what kind of trouble their mother was in. But instead of answering directly, one of the girls said something that made his entire body feel cold. They said their mother told them that if anything bad ever happened, they should find the man from the picture, the man who could save them, the man who owed them the truth. And that man, according to the girls, was him. Daniel stumbled back slightly, stunned. 1,000 questions rushed through his mind. Why would their mother keep a picture of him? How could she even know him? What truth were they talking about? The twins watched him closely as if expecting this reaction. Their eyes filled with emotion but not fear, hope, a strong, desperate hope that Daniel couldn't ignore. He took a deep breath and asked where their mother was. This time they gave a clearer answer. They pointed toward a small path leading into the forest, saying she was hiding there, afraid someone would find her, and she couldn't walk. Daniel felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. This wasn't just a coincidence. Something bigger, something connected to a part of his past he had forgotten or never learned, was unfolding right in front of him. He told the girls to get inside his car so he could drive them closer and help their mother. Immediately. But the twins shook their heads firmly. They said he had to follow them on foot because the path was narrow and dangerous. Then one of the girls looked Daniel in the eyes and said words that sent shivers through his entire body. "You're the only one she trusts. She told us you would come one day. She said you're the only one who can save her." Daniel felt something break open inside him, a mix of confusion, fear, and an overwhelming desire to protect these children. He didn't know why they believed in him, but he couldn't walk away. Something in their voices, their expressions, their strange familiarity with him made him feel this moment was tied to the very thing missing in his life. Something he had long ignored. As the twins began walking toward the forest path, Daniel followed closely behind, unaware that what he was about to discover would not only change his life forever, but reveal a truth he never imagined possible. The man stood there speechless for a moment as the twin girls clutched his jacket, their small hands trembling. He had already knelt down to be at their eye level, but now he found himself leaning closer, trying to understand what they had just told him. Their voices were soft, shaky, almost as if they were afraid someone might hear them. He could sense fear in their eyes, the kind of fear children should never have to carry. He asked them gently to repeat what they said, wanting to make sure he heard them right. The twins looked at each other, nervously exchanging glances. Then one finally whispered that someone had been following them for days. The man felt his heartbeat quicken. Something wasn't right. These weren't children who usually spoke to strangers, and yet they ran to him as if he were their only hope. He placed a steadying hand on each of their shoulders and asked where they lived, but instead of answering, they begged him not to take them home yet. Their voices were filled with desperation, their little faces tense, their eyes darting around like they expected danger to appear from behind any tree or corner. The man took a deep breath. Trying to stay calm for their sake, he asked them to tell him everything from the beginning. The twins hesitated again, then slowly explained that over the past week, a man had been watching them near their house, following them to the road, and sometimes appearing late at night near their windows. Their mother didn't believe them at first, thinking they were imagining things, but the twins insisted that they weren't making anything up. They said the stranger was tall, always wore the same dark cap, and never spoke, he only stared. The man felt chills run down his spine as the girls described the figure. No child should be able to describe someone stalking them with such detail. He could see their fear wasn't fake. It was genuine, raw, and deeply rooted. He looked around the empty road and gently asked if they saw the man today. The twins nodded. Slowly, they said they saw him earlier near the bend in the road, standing behind the trees, watching. That was why they stopped him. They didn't know who else to trust. The man felt protective instincts he hadn't felt in years. He told them to sit with him for a moment so they could talk safely. The girls sat close on a large stone by the roadside, gripping each other's hands tightly. He could tell they were exhausted, emotionally drained, and frightened. He asked if their mother was home, but they told him she worked late and only returned at night. The twins usually stayed indoors, but today they had stepped out to buy something for dinner, and that's when they spotted the stranger again. The man tried to comfort them, telling them they were safe with him for now. But inside he knew something serious was happening. He asked if they remembered anything unusual before the stalking began. Maybe someone their mother argued with, someone who visited their home, or any incident at school. The twins shook their heads, but then one paused, as if remembering something. She said their mother had received a letter a few weeks earlier that made her cry. They didn't know what was inside the letter, but after that day their mother became more protective and worried. The man leaned back slightly, his mind racing. A mysterious letter, a frightened mother, 2 children being watched, and a silent stranger who kept appearing. This wasn't random. Something bigger was connected. To all of this, he told the girls he would walk them home himself, but they begged him to wait a little longer. They said they feared the stranger would follow them back if they moved too soon. The man agreed, deciding it was safer to stay where more people occasionally passed. As they waited, he noticed how identical the twins were. Same hair, same features, same scared expression. But he also noticed something else. One of them kept glancing at him with a strange, almost searching look. Finally, she asked him a question he didn't expect. She asked if he knew their father. The man froze. He didn't know their family. He had never seen them before, but the question hit him strangely. He asked why they thought that. The twins explained that their mother often told them stories about a man who was kind, helpful, and someone who always protected others. They said their mother described him as a man who left suddenly years ago because of danger. The man felt something heavy settle in his chest. Was this just a coincidence? Before he could ask anything else, the twins said something that made his heart stop for a moment. They told him their mother once said that if they ever saw a man who looked like he cared more about others than himself, they should not be afraid to talk to him because he might be someone important in their life. At that moment, the man felt a strange mix of confusion and dread. Why would their mother say something like that? Why would she tell her daughters to trust a stranger based on that description? He stared at the twins for a long moment, wondering if there was something he wasn't being told. He felt a pull inside him, a strange familiarity he couldn't explain. But he pushed his thoughts aside for the moment because protecting them was more urgent. Just then he noticed movement far down the road. A shadowy figure stepping out for a brief second before disappearing behind the trees. His entire body stiffened. The twins saw it too and immediately grabbed his arms, whispering that it was the same man. The stranger was still there, watching, waiting. The man now knew this wasn't something he could walk away from. He had to find out who the stranger was, why he was following these girls, and what connection the mysterious letter had. What he didn't know yet was that the truth behind this entire situation had everything to do with his own past, a past he thought was long buried. The man stood there silently for a moment, staring at the twin girls as if he was seeing something he had lost long ago. The light breeze blew through the trees, and for a few seconds no one moved. The girls watched him nervously, unsure if they had done something wrong, but something deep inside them told them this moment meant something. They couldn't explain it. They just felt it. Finally, the man took a slow breath and crouched down in front of them, trying to steady his voice. He asked them softly if they really meant what they said, if they truly believed he could help them. Both girls nodded at the same time, with that innocent honesty only children could carry. They weren't trying to convince him for themselves. They were speaking for someone else, someone they loved and needed help for. He asked them what happened. The girls looked at each other the way twins do when they don't need words to speak. Then the older twin by 2 minutes stepped forward and explained that their grandmother was very sick. She had been getting weaker every day, and last night things got worse. They lived in a small old house not far from the forest, and their grandmother hadn't had the strength to get up all morning. They didn't have a phone, no neighbors nearby, and no one else to call for help. So they walked out to the road, hoping someone kind enough would pass by. The man felt his heart sink. He asked them why they chose him. Out of all the cars that could have passed before his, why did they step in front of his? The younger twin shrugged softly and said something that struck him like lightning. She told him they waited for someone who looked sad, because sad people usually understand what pain feels like, and they thought he would stop. And those simple words broke something open inside him. Sad people understand pain. It was true, painfully true. He had been carrying his sadness for years, hiding it behind expensive clothes, a powerful job, and a life everyone believed was perfect. But these two little girls, without knowing anything about him, had seen right through him as if he was made of glass. He told them to get in his car and that he would take them home quickly. As he drove, the twins talked softly in the back seat, describing their grandmother with so much love that the man felt a knot grow in his throat. They told him how she used to sing to them at night, how she taught them how to braid each other's Hair, how she told them stories from her childhood. She was the only family they had since their parents passed away in an accident. Years earlier, every word felt like a mirror reflecting his own past. He too had been raised by his grandmother. She had been the only one who loved him unconditionally, the only one who stayed with him during his childhood struggles. She was the reason he had become strong, hardworking, alive. And then one day, life took her away from him too. He never recovered fully from that loss, even though he pretended he had died as he drove. He felt something happening inside him, something he had not felt in years, a purpose. Not the cold business kind of purpose, a warm, human one. The kind he had forgotten existed. When they reached the small old house, the girls jumped out quickly and guided him inside. The place was humble, worn out, filled with memories but lacking comfort. He could tell they didn't have much, but everything inside was kept clean, as if the grandmother had always tried to give her granddaughters a safe space despite having so little. They led him to a small bedroom where an elderly woman lay on a thin mattress, breathing heavily, her skin pale and weak. The man felt something twist inside him as he stepped closer. The room reminded him of the last days he spent with his own grandmother. The smell of medicine, the slow breathing, the silence that always felt too heavy. The girls knelt beside her and held her hand, telling her that help had arrived. She opened her tired eyes slightly and looked at the man with confusion at first, then relief. She tried to sit up but didn't have the strength. The man rushed forward gently and told her not to move. He asked her about her symptoms, and even though he wasn't a doctor, he could tell she urgently needed medical help. Without wasting another second, he carried her carefully in his arms. The girls followed him outside, worried but hopeful. He placed her in the back seat and drove faster than he had driven in years, heading straight to the nearest hospital. The twins held their grandmother's hand the whole time, whispering for her to stay awake. The man kept glancing at the rear-view mirror, seeing the three of them together, and something inside him softened completely. He had money, resources, power, things these girls didn't. He could save them from this fear, from this struggle. For once, his success could actually help someone who deserved it. When they arrived at the hospital, nurses rushed her inside. The twins stayed close to him as if he was already becoming someone important in their world. He didn't understand why, but he didn't want to disappoint them. He stayed, he waited, he prayed silently, even though he hadn't prayed in years. Hours passed. And during those hours, the man felt something he never expected. A feeling that this moment wasn't a coincidence. That the twins stopping him earlier had a reason. That the sadness inside him had brought him here to make him face something he had been avoiding for too long. And just when he thought things couldn't become more intense, the doctor walked out with a look that made all three of them hold their breath. What happened next changed everything. The man stayed frozen for a moment, staring at the two little girls who were now sitting quietly with their grandmother by the fire. The warmth of the glowing wood lit their faces, and for the first time since the moment he had met them on the road, the storm inside his heart finally settled. Something about them pulled him in, something that felt almost like destiny tugging at his sleeve, refusing to let him walk away from their story. The grandmother brought him a cup of warm tea and told him to sit. Her hands were trembling slightly, either from age or from the fear that she was asking too much from a stranger. But he sat down without hesitation. He had come this far with them, and now he wanted to know everything. The girls sat across from him, their small hands clasped together tightly, as if supporting one another. He spoke gently, asking their names again, and they said them with bright eyes. Then he asked what they meant earlier when they said he looked like someone they missed. At first, both girls lowered their heads. Their grandmother sighed deeply, a sound filled with years of carrying a story she wished she had never lived. She finally spoke, her voice soft but heavy. She explained that the girls had never met their father. He had died before they even opened their eyes to the world, and all these years they had asked what he looked like. The only picture they had left was an old, torn photo so faded that the face in it was barely recognizable. The girls had always imagined their father would have kind eyes, A calm smile and a gentle voice, and when they saw this man on the road earlier that day, exhausted, confused, and yet kind enough to help them without asking anything in return, they felt something familiar, something warm, something comforting. To them, for a brief sweet moment, it felt like their father had stepped into the world again, just to help them reach home safely. The man swallowed hard, feeling something twisting inside his chest. He asked if he could see the photo. The grandmother hesitated but finally nodded. She pulled out a small cloth, carefully unwrapped it, and handed him the photograph. When he looked at it, he froze once more. The resemblance, it was shocking. The faded features were so close to his own that even he would have mistaken the man in the picture for himself. He looked up at the girls. They weren't wrong. Their father truly did look like him. A strange pull climbed through his heart, a mix of pain and tenderness he couldn't explain. It wasn't just coincidence that he met them on that road. It wasn't just accident that he stopped. Something bigger was at work, something that wanted him exactly in this place, exactly in this moment. He stayed silent for a long time, and the girls watched him carefully, as if afraid he would disappear if they blinked. The grandmother lowered her gaze, probably expecting him to hand back the picture, say a polite "thank you," and leave forever, but instead he asked them gently how they had been surviving. The grandmother explained that she tried her best, but times were hard. The girls needed school fees, food, clothes, things she could no longer afford after her health had declined. But she never let the girls know how difficult it was. She wanted them to believe the world was still full of kindness. The man felt something warm and painful rising inside him. He had lived his life rushing through cities, meeting deadlines, signing contracts, earning money, but never feeling anything this real, this pure. He had never imagined that a single moment with 2 children could shake him more than any deal he had ever closed. He looked around the small home, its cracked walls, low roof, and the simple bowls on the table. Yet somehow it felt warmer than any luxury apartment he had ever stayed in. There was love here, there was innocence, and there was a story he could not turn his back on. As the night deepened, he finally spoke. He told them he wanted to help. The grandmother looked startled, unsure if he was saying this out of guilt or politeness. But he continued, saying he truly wanted to be part of their lives, not just for a moment, but permanently, if they allowed it. The grandmother's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't asked for anything. She never begged or pleaded. And yet, here was this man, this complete stranger, offering something she never dreamed possible. The girls moved closer to him again. One of them touched his hand shyly. The other leaned against his arm the same way she had on the road. They didn't say anything, but their small gestures said more than words could ever express. They trusted him. They wanted him near. They felt safe with him. He felt his throat tighten. A part of him wondered if he was the one who had been saved that day. Saved from an empty life, saved from loneliness he didn't even realize he carried. These little girls had stepped into his world like a sudden burst of light, showing him a part of himself he didn't know existed. He promised the grandmother he would return in the morning to discuss everything properly. But before he left, he leaned down and told the girls that no matter what happened next, he wasn't going to disappear from their lives. They smiled wide, innocent, happy smiles, and it felt like the entire world shifted inside him. As he walked out into the night, something inside him was different. Something was glowing, something alive. He had come across 2 children who weren't his, yet somehow his heart refused to let them go. He knew that when morning came, everything would change. For them, for their grandmother, and for him. And the biggest surprise was still waiting at sunrise, when he returned with a truth and a gift that would forever transform all of their lives.